Hey, welcome to Tech Positive. Charlie Dino here, your host. Looking forward to our topic today. It's being sponsored by 4Cloud, who is bringing the cloud to you to make it affordable and secure. So if you watched our last episode, I talk a lot about information security. We'll talk a little bit more with cybersecurity today. It's a great topic. We talk a lot about in our previous episode, which we'll get into today, the fact that there is a lot of opportunity out there for those that need it. I think they think they're secure from a cybersecurity perspective and the like. There's a lot of opportunity to do better there. So my guest today is Ismael Navarro from Countervail. He's the founder and CEO. Ismael, nice to have you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Genuinely. Thanks.
Awesome. Hey, I kind of introduced it, and I will tell you, as you and I have talked, I'm super passionate about getting the word out to people about opportunities for them to really realize and maybe look at areas where they could improve from a cybersecurity perspective. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Countervail and how you guys are trying to, take that effort and bring solutions to the market?
A lot of it right now is heavily focused on the service. We do have two product offerings, but a lot of it is focused on just, surfacing some of that information to these organizations that they're interested, but they don't know how to get, mature. When I say maturity, they don't know how to, scale their cybersecurity, whatever that means to those specific organizations. So just trying to bring awareness. And then if we can, through some of those services, help these companies scale as much as they can with what they can do. So that's the primary focus right now. And then, the products are our secondary kind of offering.
Okay. So for the audience and myself, so say I'm someone who I either think that I'm secure, or I know that they're listening to this episode and saying, geez, you know what? I don't really know how secure I am. What would you suggest, and how would Countervail approach someone like that?
Right. So, whether you're going to an organization like mine, or you're just reaching out in general because you do have that curiosity, hey, we need to get secure, and you have some of those questions, from an organizational standpoint, whether you're the owner, whether you're middle or strategic management, and you need to reach out, you need to be asking those questions, and hopefully the organization you reach out to is kind enough to, guide you in a sense. In Countervail's case, one of my main things that I offer to people who are potential customers and just in general is, hey, at the end of the day, if you don't choose me, fine, we can part as friends. I'm going to give you all the information you need to stand up your security posture, give you the right guidance, whether you choose me or not. So at the end of the day, my intellectual property that I've hunted for over the years, have it. I want you to be secure, period. And that's pretty much how we go about it.
No, that's awesome. I listen, and our audience will know this. Our goal here is how can we take technology, assessments of technology, and go ahead and bring that as a positive to top line growth and bottom line growth in a business. And I know I'll echo this to you. We've told the audience this in the past: is you have a breach or something happens from a cyber defense perspective, there's nothing more that could hurt your top line and bottom line from my perspective. So just for the audience though, so what would you look at? Would you suggest they look at if you guys sort of come in? Because I appreciate what you said. You're passionate, which I appreciate. You want people to be secure, but what are some of the high level areas you guys would come in and look at for someone that maybe was looking for help to ensure that they do have the right cyber defense?
At a high level, really is just evaluating their security overall. And I know that's kind of an arbitrary statement, but what I mean to say is what do you have? Are you have any log management? Are you guys, tagging your system devices? That could be your employee laptops. Yep. Very rudimentary things that people don't even think about. People talk about MFA and a lot of these vendor Kool-Aid terminology things. But really, at the end of the day, it's every organization's unique. Everybody's trying to do security to some degree. And the ones who are not are just because they don't think their customers care for it. But at the end of the day, when we go in and evaluate, it's those little things, right? How is that specific unique organization doing security? Whether they're tagging, whether they're on Mac OS, Windows OS, whether they work in the cloud, whether they don't work in the cloud, whether they, use multiple VPN systems. So it's a very broad range of evaluation.
Yeah.
So you take the, I've heard the saying, eat the elephant one bite at a time for many organizations. And that's pretty much what we do. We start
Yep.
out very small. We centralize to their most critical information, the most critical assets. We centralize there, and then we work outwards.
Yeah. So you brought up a good one. So that's where I was going. So, I mean, from my perspective, and I want to hear what your take is on it. I mean, if I were to advise people and they take anything from this, you mentioned one of them, like if you don't have multi-factor authentication MFA, you need to look into it. Like I think about vulnerability scanning. Do they have that? Is there anything else you can think of that are the simple things that they could look into without having to get someone in and then go to the next step? Like I think about those as a few that I off the top of my head would be very helpful for someone to ensure they have in their organization, or they have somebody doing it for them.
Yeah, and really it's not just about the products or platforms, right? Because organizations that really don't have budget, there's plenty of open source things out there. I mean, there's tons of things. I mean, we can get into a barrage of things like Deception Grid, Honey Token. I mean, again, I can go through the cyber defense umbrella and say, here's all of these solutions. And that's when you start talking about cyber defense in-depth program, right? Where you're starting to layer your security. But I mean, initially, to circle back to your original question, is when an organization doesn't have anything, they're not logging, they're not monitoring anything, they don't even have an analyst, they don't have just the basics. I mean, that's where you want to start out. I mean, because at the end of the day, if your 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, there's a problem. So it's really getting down to the rudimentary basics and providing these organizations who have no idea that kind of information and just, hey, I can guide you as much as I can. And that's pretty much what we want to do.
No, that's awesome. That's what I wanted to hear. Is I have the same opinion, is that it doesn't have to be expensive for you to start off and take steps to making yourself secure from a cyber and information security perspective. So totally agree. And I hope people are listening to that, because I think when people think information security, the first thing when I talk to anybody outside of the circle that knows these things as you do and I do, is the first thing they think is it's expensive or it's going to slow down how they do business. And I would say there's nothing further from the truth with the newest technologies.
I mean, there's very generic things too. And someone in the cyber defense industry might laugh at me when I say these things, but there's companies out there that, they're not aware of these open source tools like LastPass that create very complex passwords for you. They're not aware of, cybersecurity awareness month and having that, or, hey, don't click on every link that gets sent to you. Some of those very basic things, people just, people have clickbait habit, and that can simply ruin your organization if you just, hey, don't click on these things. It's rudimentary things like that. That's where you got to start ground zero and then work your way out. And then obviously it is also contingent upon your budget, open source versus proprietary. How many IT guys do you got? Can you afford a security analyst, an engineer? So all of those things are, you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, cool. Hey, my last question for you is something that I talk to a lot of people about in the cyber defense and information security space. Is from your perspective, what would you say is the best way for someone to think about not just being secure, but ensuring that they are looking at maybe like some type of security training for their users, something of that nature? Do you find with your clients that that's something that's easy once they get into it?
Definitely not. Yeah.
Okay.
And again, this is experience based, right? This is a perception based on what I've seen in the industry. And I mean, even training for engineers, right? People who are experienced, who have years of, cyber defense experience, people who are already analysts, whether they're working at Microsoft or Google, you know what I mean? Training is something that is expensive when you talk about cyber defense training. So, I mean, someone who is just unaware in general, I think, again, we offer these cyber defense packages that are more awareness training videos that users who don't understand, basic rudimentary OS level things, where the control panel is. Why don't I click on this email? Why don't I do X? Why don't I do what? So, I mean, I think that kind of training is easy to incorporate and implement. Like, hey, you got to watch this video, if you fail the exam, you got to watch this video again. I mean, but even people in the security industry,
Yeah.
Training is something that is always done, and
Yeah.
it's very expensive. It's not cheap, and yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think you touched on it, is that for the general users for a business to do that yearly look at, hey, here's ways that you can help from a user perspective to avoid possible breaches.
Oh, in my opinion, it should be done quarterly, because people get
Nice.
back into those bad habits. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep. Absolutely.
Just general human behavior, right? So
yeah, and this builds off that. So I would say, and I just want your opinion on it quickly, is that it feels like for most people that are entrepreneurs and really haven't looked at or think they're secure, is that there's always seems like a consequence has to happen for them to realize that things are out there. And I hope what we're doing with you today avoids that consequence, right? That they're a little more proactive.
That is not, I'll just make this clear. That is not just like the entrepreneur, the small business. I think that I've seen that across, enterprises that have billion-dollar budget, you know what I mean? Where they're like, oh, well, this risk acceptance thing, like, oh, well, we'll get hit. And again, I'm going to say this loosely, okay? I'm not demeaning anybody out there. I'm just saying this loosely. Who cares about the customer? We can afford to pay the $100 million, government hits. You know what I mean? It's like, you start thinking like that, and that's just the wrong answer. But
totally agree. Totally agree.
That's everywhere. That's small, medium, large companies.
Yep. Totally agree.
They are in terms of, hey, we'll get hacked first, and then we'll talk about budget.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
I mean, don't
let the consequence happen to you.
There's a reason those stereotypical memes exist on LinkedIn, on Facebook, everywhere, so.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I think that's a good place to end. I would say to you that for me, it's easy for us to say, hey, there's consequences, get out there and look. I would encourage you, having, met Ismail and talking to him about this, check Countervail out. They can help you. And as he said, I mean, I love the comment you made earlier in the episode that, well, you're about is making sure people are more secure, that you're going to get things out there to them and make sure that they do better. So Ismail, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. And, I appreciate that. It's free to talk to me, period.
Cool. Very good. Thanks, Ismail. So, all right. So listen, if you like this episode of Tech Positive, make sure you subscribe and go ahead and like our channel. If you have new topics, put it down in the comments for us. And as we've said in the past, these episodes hopefully are helping you to grow your top line and your bottom line. Great episode today. I can't tell you enough to wrap it up. It's not as expensive as you think. There are people out there like Ismail and Countervail that want to help you. So make sure that you have cyber defense and information security. Thanks for checking in on Tech Positive. We'll see you next time. If you believe technology can be a positive for business growth, please like and subscribe.